What if I told you that tonight you'll discover the real reason Spider-Man became the greatest hero of all time, and it has nothing to do with his superpowers? Hello, my dear web-slingers and dreamers. It's Abby. Welcome back to another evening of Marvel magic and heroic adventures. You know, with everything happening in our world today, sometimes we need to be reminded that ordinary people can do extraordinary things, and there's no better hero to teach us that lesson than your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Tonight, we're embarking on an epic journey through the web of connections that make Peter Parker not just a superhero, but the heart that keeps an entire universe beating. So before you settle in for this amazing adventure, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel, but only if you genuinely love these Marvel tales we share together. And I'd love to know in the comments, are you Team Spider-Man? What's your favorite memory of our web-slinging hero? It always amazes me to see how Spider-Man has touched lives all around the world. Now dim those lights, maybe grab your favorite mug for some hot cocoa or warm milk, pull that cozy blanket up to your chin, and let's swing into tonight's incredible adventure together. Take a deep breath and let the stress of the day just melt away. Tonight isn't just about Spider-Man's amazing powers or his spectacular battles against villains. This is about your discovery of what makes an ordinary teenager from Queens become the most beloved hero in the Marvel Universe. You'll step into Peter Parker's world, feel the real weight of responsibility, experience the genuine thrill of helping others, and find comfort in knowing that even the greatest heroes started as regular people who simply chose to care about others. You're about to become part of something special. 4 interconnected tales await you, each one revealing a different piece of the Spider-Man legend. By the time our journey ends, you'll understand not just Peter's incredible story, but you'll discover the hero that lives inside your own heart. Listen closely as the sounds of New York City at night begin to surround us. Can you hear the distant sirens of emergency vehicles rushing to help people in need? The gentle whoosh of something moving swiftly between the skyscrapers. The comforting hum of a city that never sleeps, always watched over by someone who cares. If you've ever felt like you don't quite fit in, if you've ever wondered if your differences could actually be your greatest strength, then tonight's stories are especially for you. You're going to discover how being different isn't something to hide from, but something to celebrate and use to make the world a better place. We'll start at Midtown High School, where secrets are harder to keep than you might think. Then we'll venture into the bustling newsroom of the Daily Bugle, where truth and lies dance a dangerous game. Our journey will take us through the heart of Queens, where heroes aren't born but chosen by the communities they serve. And finally, we'll witness the very beginning of it all, where a simple choice changed everything. So get comfortable, close your eyes if you'd like, and prepare to swing through the greatest superhero story ever told. This isn't just Peter Parker's story anymore. Tonight, it becomes yours too. Are you ready? Then let's begin our amazing adventure with your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Your heart pounds as you walk through the halls of Midtown High School of Science and Technology for the first time, clutching your class schedule and trying not to trip over your own feet. The acceptance letter to the academic decathlon team feels heavy in your backpack, a reminder that you somehow made it into one of New York's most prestigious schools. The hallways stretch endlessly before you, filled with students who all seem to know exactly where they belong. Your sneakers squeak against the polished linoleum floors as you navigate through clusters of teenagers discussing advanced physics like it's casual conversation. Locker doors slam shut with metallic echoes that bounce off the walls, creating a symphony of organized chaos that makes your head spin. You pause outside your first period classroom, taking a deep breath. The scent of cafeteria pizza already wafts through the air even though it's barely 8 in the morning, mixing with that unmistakable smell of teenage anxiety and fresh textbooks. Your palms are sweating as you adjust your backpack straps, wondering if everyone can tell you don't quite belong here yet. That's when you first see him. Peter Parker sits near the back of your AP chemistry class, looking like he hasn't slept in days. His brown hair is messier than everyone else's, and there's something about the way he keeps checking his phone that catches your attention. He's brilliant, that much becomes obvious within the first 10 minutes of class, but he seems oddly absent-minded for someone so smart. During lunch, you notice Peter again in the cafeteria. He's sitting with his best friend Ned Leeds, but their conversation stops abruptly when you walk past their table. There's something secretive about the way they're talking, their voices dropping to urgent whispers. You catch fragments of words that don't make sense. internship, responsibility, someone named May. As the days pass, you start to notice things about Peter that don't add up. He has mysterious bruises on his arms that he tries to hide under long sleeves. Dark circles under his eyes suggest he's not getting nearly enough sleep for a teenager. Sometimes he'll be perfectly fine 1 minute, then suddenly wince as if something hurts, touching his ribs carefully when he thinks no one is looking. The strangest thing is how he seems to know things before they happen. Yesterday he grabbed your arm and pulled you back just seconds before a distracted student carrying a tower of books crashed into the exact spot where you'd been standing. When you asked how he knew, he just shrugged and said he had good reflexes. There are other incidents too. The school bully Flash Thompson somehow ended up stuck to his locker with what looked like industrial strength adhesive, and nobody could figure out how it happened. A month later, Flash's expensive watch mysteriously appeared dangling from the gymnasium ceiling 20 feet up, where no normal person could have put it. Peter's frequent disappearances are the most puzzling part. He'll be in class one moment, and then his seat will be empty after what everyone assumes was a bathroom break. But these breaks last for hours sometimes, and he always returns looking exhausted, with fresh cuts and bruises he tries to explain away as clumsiness. During academic decathlon practice, you're working on a particularly challenging physics problem when Peter's phone buzzes. You happen to glance over and see his face go completely pale as he reads whatever message just came through. His hands are actually shaking as he types back a response, and you notice he keeps looking toward the windows like he's planning an escape route. Coach Wilson is in the middle of explaining electromagnetic theory when Peter suddenly stands up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Every head in the room turns toward him as he stammers something about a family emergency. The look in his eyes isn't the normal teenage panic of someone making up an excuse. It's something deeper, more urgent, like lives depend on whatever he needs to do. As he rushes toward the door, his backpack catches on the corner of a desk and spills open. Books scatter across the floor, along with what looks like small mechanical devices you don't recognize. Peter drops to his knees, frantically shoving everything back into his bag, but not before you get a clear look at something that makes your blood run cold. There, among his textbooks and notebooks, are small metallic cartridges that look far too sophisticated for any normal high school student to own. They're sleek and precisely engineered, nothing like anything you've ever seen before. Peter catches you staring, and his eyes meet yours for just a moment. The fear in his expression isn't about getting in trouble for having strange gadgets. It's the fear of someone whose deepest secret has just been exposed. When Peter returns to school the next day, he seems different, more cautious. He keeps glancing in your direction during classes, like he's trying to figure out exactly what you saw and how much you understand. During lunch, you work up the courage to approach his table. "Welcome to the team," Peter says. When you sit down, his voice carrying a weight that seems too heavy for someone your age. His eyes seem to hold secrets that go far deeper than typical teenage problems. "Just promise me you'll be careful around here." The way he says it makes your skin crawl. This isn't the normal warning about staying out of trouble or keeping up with the academic pressure. There's something else happening at Midtown High. Something that has Peter Parker constantly looking over his shoulder and jumping at unexpected sounds. You realize that getting accepted to this prestigious school wasn't just about joining the academic decathlon team or advancing your education. You've stumbled into something much bigger, something that involves your new friend Peter in ways you're only beginning to understand. The question now is whether you're brave enough to find out what secret he's hiding, and whether you're ready for the truth about what really happens in the halls of Midtown High School of Science and Technology. The secret you've glimpsed burns in your chest like a living thing, demanding answers about why Peter Parker keeps disappearing, and why he always seems to know when danger is coming. Those strange mechanical devices you saw spilling from his backpack haunt your thoughts during every class, every meal, every quiet moment when you should be focusing on homework instead of mysteries. You've started paying closer attention to Peter's patterns, and what you've discovered makes you more curious than ever. He receives urgent text messages at the strangest times, always from unknown numbers, and his responses are never the casual replies of a normal teenager. His fingers fly across his phone screen with practiced urgency, like he's coordinating something important. Today you've made a decision that feels both terrifying and necessary. When the final bell rings and students begin flooding out of Midtown High, you hang back, pretending to organize your locker while keeping one eye on Peter. He's moving with purpose through the crowded hallway, not toward the main exit where most students head for the subway, but toward a side door that leads to the emergency stairwell. Your heart pounds as you follow him at a safe distance. The afternoon sunlight streams through the school's tall windows, casting long shadows that help hide your presence as you navigate through the emptying corridors. Peter moves like someone who's done this route 100 times before, taking turns and shortcuts that suggest this isn't a random destination. The emergency stairwell is dimmer than the main hallways, and you have to control your breathing to keep from making noise as you climb the stairs behind him. Each step echoes slightly in the enclosed space, and you pray Peter's too focused on his mission to notice the extra footsteps. Your legs start to burn as you climb higher and higher, past floors you didn't even know existed in the school building. Finally, Peter stops at a door marked Roof Access, mono-authorized personnel only. You watch from the landing below as he pulls out what looks like a key card and swipes it through an electronic reader. The lock clicks open with a soft beep and Peter disappears through the door. You wait 30 seconds, counting each heartbeat before carefully following. The rooftop of Midtown High is nothing like you expected. It's not just a flat surface with some air conditioning units. There are areas that have been clearly modified, with what looks like high-tech equipment partially hidden behind regular maintenance structures. But what catches your attention most is Peter himself. He's standing near the edge of the roof, pulling something out of his backpack. Your breath catches in your throat as you realize what you're seeing. Peter Parker is changing clothes, but not into gym clothes or a different outfit for after school. He's putting on something red and blue, something that looks impossibly familiar. You duck behind a large air conditioning unit, your heart hammering so loudly you're sure he must be able to hear it. The metal surface is cold against your back as you press yourself against it, trying to process what you're witnessing. This isn't possible. Things like this don't happen to normal high school students in Queens. But as you peer around the corner of your hiding spot, there's no denying what you see. Peter Parker, your awkward, brilliant, mysteriously absent classmate, is fully dressed in a red and blue costume that every person in New York City would recognize instantly. The costume fits him perfectly, like it was made specifically for his body, and he moves in it with the confidence of someone who's worn it many times before. He walks to the edge of the roof and raises his hand. There's a soft mechanical sound like a precision instrument activating, and suddenly a thin strand of something shoots out from his wrist. It arcs through the air and attaches to a building across the street with perfect accuracy. Peter tests the line once, then steps off the edge of the building. Your legs give out and you sink to your knees behind the air conditioning unit. Everything you thought you knew about your life, your school, your new friend has just been turned completely upside down. Peter Parker isn't just some exceptionally smart student who happens to have mysterious bruises and unexplained absences. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. The realization hits you like a physical force. All those times he seemed to know danger was coming, all those mysterious injuries, all those urgent text messages and sudden disappearances. He hasn't been ditching class or getting into normal teenage trouble. He's been saving people. He's been swinging through New York City, stopping criminals, preventing disasters, carrying the weight of an entire city's safety on his shoulders. And he's your age. He sits through the same boring chemistry lectures you do. He struggles with the same math homework. He eats the same terrible cafeteria food. But somehow, he's also one of the most famous superheroes in the world, and nobody at school has any idea. You sit on that rooftop for what feels like hours, trying to process everything you've learned. The sun starts to set over Queens, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that remind you of Spider-Man's costume colors. When Peter finally returns, swinging back to the roof with the same casual grace he showed leaving, you're still crouched behind the air conditioning unit. He lands silently and immediately begins changing back into his regular clothes. But there's something different about his movements now. He's more careful, more alert, like he senses something has changed. As he pulls his regular shirt over his head, he suddenly stops and turns toward your hiding spot. "I know you're there," he says quietly, his voice carrying clearly across the rooftop. "You might as well come out." Your entire body feels like it's made of lead as you slowly stand up and step out from behind the unit. Peter's expression isn't angry or surprised. He looks tired and maybe a little relieved, like he's been carrying this secret for so long that part of him is glad someone finally knows. "How long have you been following me?" he asks, but not in an accusatory way. He sounds genuinely curious. "Just today," you manage to say, your voice coming out as barely more than a whisper, "but I've been noticing things for weeks." Peter nods slowly, like this makes perfect sense to him. "The web cartridges," he says. "You saw them when my bag spilled." You nod, not trusting your voice to work properly. "I've been wondering when someone would figure it out." Peter continues, sitting down on the edge of the roof like having this conversation 20 stories above Queens is the most natural thing in the world. "I've gotten sloppy lately. Too many emergencies, not enough time to cover my tracks properly." "How long have you been?" You pause, not sure how to finish the question. "Spider-Man," Peter supplies. "About 2 years now, since I was 15. 2 years. He's been doing this incredible, dangerous, impossible thing for 2 years, and nobody knew. Nobody helped him. Nobody shared the burden of keeping New York City safe." "Does anyone else know?" you ask. "A few people," Peter says. "My best friend Ned figured it out pretty quickly. My Aunt May knows. There are some adults who help sometimes, but mostly it's just me." The weight of that statement settles over both of you. Just him, a teenager from Queens, carrying the responsibility of protecting millions of people and doing it almost completely alone. "Are you going to tell anyone?" Peter asks. And for the first time, you hear real fear in his voice. "No," you say immediately, surprising yourself with how certain you sound. "I would never do that to you." Peter's shoulders relax visibly. "Thank you," he says simply. You sit together on the rooftop as the first stars begin to appear over New York City. Below you, the lights of Queens twinkle like earthbound constellations, representing millions of people going about their evening routines, completely unaware that their safety depends on the teenager sitting next to you. "It must be lonely," you say finally. "It was," Peter admits. "But maybe it doesn't have to be anymore." The moment of truth has arrived, and with it comes the terrifying realization that you can never go back to who you were before this conversation. Sitting on the rooftop of Midtown High School next to Peter Parker, watching the city lights flicker to life below, you understand that your life has just divided into 2 distinct parts before you knew Spider-Man's identity and everything that comes after. Your heart continues to thunder in your ears as the reality of the situation fully sinks in. The boy sitting next to you, who worries about chemistry tests and academic decathlon competitions just like you do, is also the person who swings between skyscrapers and fights criminals that could easily kill him. The contrast is so stark it makes your head spin. "I know this is a lot to process," Peter says gently, as if he can read the chaos in your thoughts. "When I first got these powers, I felt like I was living in 2 completely different worlds that could never connect."
You want to ask him how he manages it, how he balances being a normal teenager with being a superhero, but the questions feel too big for your mouth to form. Instead, you find yourself studying his face in the dim light from the city below. There are details you never noticed before that now make perfect sense. The way his eyes are always scanning for potential dangers, how he sits with his back to walls whenever possible, the unconscious way he flexes his fingers, like he's ready to shoot webs at a moment's notice.
"The hardest part," Peter continues, "isn't the physical stuff. It's not even the danger, really. It's the lying. Having to make up excuses for why I'm late, why I'm bruised, why I can't hang out sometimes. Watching people I care about worry about me and not being able to tell them the real reason why." There's pain in his voice that goes deeper than any physical injury Spider-Man has ever sustained. You realize that every person Peter cares about has been carrying a piece of his burden without knowing it. Aunt May worrying when he comes home late, Ned covering for his absences, teachers making assumptions about his priorities when he misses assignments because he was busy saving lives. "Why are you telling me this?" you ask. You could have just denied everything, made up some story about the costume being for a school play or something. Peter is quiet for a long moment, staring out over Queens like he's looking for the right words in the pattern of lights below. "Because I'm tired," he says finally. "I'm so tired of carrying this alone. And because when I saw the way you looked at me after you saw the web cartridges, I realized you already knew something was different. You just needed confirmation." The honesty in his admission makes your chest tight. Here is someone your own age who has been carrying the weight of an entire city's safety, doing it almost completely alone, and still finding the strength to trust you with the most dangerous secret in his life. Plus, Peter adds with a small smile, "My spider sense has been telling me you're trustworthy since the day you started at Midtown. It's never wrong about people." Spider sense, you ask? It's hard to explain. Like an early warning system that tells me when danger is coming. But it also helps me read people, figure out who I can trust. He looks at you directly. It's been completely calm around you from day one. That's actually pretty rare. The idea that Spider-Man has some kind of supernatural sense that vouches for your character is both flattering and overwhelming. You think about all the times Peter seemed to know things before they happened, all those moments when he pulled you or other students out of harm's way just before something bad occurred. "Is that how you knew to move me before that student crashed into where I was standing?" you ask. Exactly. My spider sense goes off about 3 seconds before something dangerous happens. Gives me just enough time to react. Peter demonstrates by holding up his hand. It's also how I can do this. There's a soft mechanical sound, and suddenly a thin strand of webbing shoots from his wrist, arcing perfectly across the gap between buildings to stick to a water tower on the roof opposite yours. The precision is incredible, like he can calculate angle, distance, and wind resistance without even thinking about it. "The web shooters are my own design," Peter explains with obvious pride. "The formula for the webbing took me months to perfect. It's biodegradable, dissolves completely after about an hour, but while it's active, it's stronger than steel cable." You stare at the web line stretching between buildings, trying to comprehend the level of scientific genius required to create something like that. "You invented those in high school?" "Well, I had help understanding the basics from some really smart people. But yeah, the final design is mine." Peter's smile is genuine now, the first completely relaxed expression you've seen from him since this conversation started. Turns out getting bitten by a radioactive spider doesn't just give you superpowers, it also really improves your understanding of physics and chemistry. The casual way he mentions being bitten by a radioactive spider makes you realize there's still so much of his story you don't know. But before you can ask about that, Peter's expression suddenly becomes serious again. "There's something else you need to understand," he says. "Knowing this secret puts you in danger. There are people who would hurt anyone close to Spider-Man just to get to me. Bad people who wouldn't hesitate to threaten my friends and family. The weight of that responsibility settles on your shoulders like a heavy cloak. You're not just keeping Peter's secret to protect his identity anymore. You're keeping it to protect yourself and everyone else he cares about." "I understand," you say, and you mean it completely. "Do you?" Peter asks, and there's something in his voice that makes you look at him more carefully. Because once you're part of this world, there's no going back to pretending it doesn't exist. There's no unknowing what you know now. You think about that for a moment, considering what your life will be like from now on, knowing that while you're sitting in chemistry class, Peter might be across town fighting criminals, understanding that his mysterious absences aren't teenage rebellion but actual life or death situations, realizing that the safety you've always taken for granted in New York City depends partly on your classmates' willingness to risk everything to protect strangers. "I don't want to go back," you say firmly. "I want to help." Peter's eyes widen slightly. "Help how?" "I don't know yet, but there has to be something I can do. Research, maybe? Or help you keep track of your regular life so you don't fall behind in school? I'm good at organizing things, covering for people when they need it." For the first time since you've known him, Peter Parker looks genuinely surprised. "You really want to help Spider-Man?" "I want to help Peter. You correct. Spider-Man is amazing, but Peter is my friend, and friends don't let friends carry impossible burdens alone." The smile that spreads across Peter's face is like sunrise after the longest night. It's the expression of someone who has been holding their breath for months and can finally exhale. "You know what? I think this is going to work out better than I expected." As you both stand up to head back down to the school, Peter pauses at the rooftop door. "Ready for the real adventure to begin?" he asks. You take one last look at the sprawling city below, thinking about all the people going about their lives, trusting that someone will keep them safe, Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new dangers, new opportunities to make a difference. But tonight, you finally know who you are and where you belong. You're not just a student at Midtown High anymore. You're part of Spider-Man's world now, and that changes everything. 3 weeks after learning Peter's incredible secret, you find yourself working the graveyard shift at the Daily Bugle, trying to help Spider-Man's reputation while navigating the most chaotic newsroom in New York City. The irony isn't lost on you that you're now inside the very building where J. Jonah Jameson spends his days screaming about Spider-Man being a menace, completely unaware that the hero he's trying to destroy is actually a teenager from Queens who just wants to help people. The Daily Bugle never truly sleeps, but the night shift has a different energy than the daytime chaos. Keyboards clack steadily as late-night reporters chase breaking stories, while police scanners crackle with reports of incidents across the city. The coffee in your mug has long since grown cold as you sort through file after file of Spider-Man photographs, trying to find ways to present them in a more positive light for tomorrow's edition. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting harsh shadows across the newsroom that feels much larger and more intimidating when most of the desks are empty. Through the rain-streaked windows, you can see the lights of Manhattan twinkling like stars, each one representing thousands of people who have no idea that their friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is being systematically attacked by one of the city's most influential newspapers. Your internship here wasn't exactly planned. After that night on the school rooftop with Peter, you both realized that someone needed to work from the inside to counteract the Daily Bugle's relentless anti-Spider-Man campaign. Getting the position meant calling in a favor from a family friend who works in the building's administrative offices, but it was worth it to have access to the heart of the media machine that's been painting Peter as a villain. The work itself should be simple. You're supposed to organize photo files, help with basic research, and generally assist the night shift editors with whatever they need. But what you've discovered in just 3 weeks has been far more disturbing than you expected. The Daily Bugle's coverage of Spider-Man isn't just biased journalism or one man's personal vendetta. There's something much more deliberate and coordinated happening here. Tonight, you're working through a stack of Spider-Man photographs that came in from various freelance photographers around the city. Most of them show Spider-Man in action, helping people, stopping crimes, saving lives. But when you compare them to what actually gets published in the paper, you notice a troubling pattern. The heroic shots mysteriously disappear, while only the photos that can be taken out of context or made to look suspicious ever make it to print. Computer monitors glow softly in the darkened workspace as you dig deeper into the digital archives. What you find makes your stomach turn. There are entire folders of Spider-Man photos that have never been published, showing him rescuing children from burning buildings, helping elderly people who've fallen, even assisting police officers in dangerous situations. But these images are buried in files marked "Do Not Use," with no explanation for why such positive coverage has been suppressed. The soft buzz of the police scanner in the corner provides constant background noise, occasionally crackling to life with reports of crimes in progress. Every time you hear an incident being reported in Queens, your heart skips a beat, wondering if Peter is out there right now, putting himself in danger to help people who will never know his real name or appreciate the sacrifices he makes for them. As you continue sorting through files, you notice that several veteran reporters and editors act strangely whenever certain names come up in conversation. Yesterday, when someone mentioned a recent break-in at a warehouse where Spider-Man had stopped the thieves, the entire room went quiet. Not the normal quiet of people concentrating on work, but the uncomfortable silence of people who know something they're not supposed to talk about. Your investigation takes an unexpected turn when you discover a folder buried deep in the archive system labeled Project Discredit. The folder requires special access permissions that your intern account doesn't have, but the metadata visible in the file properties shows it was created just 2 months ago and has been updated almost daily since then. The timing is suspicious, coinciding perfectly with an escalation in the Daily Bugle's anti-Spider-Man coverage. Working late into the night, you start noticing other irregularities in the newspaper's operations. Security cameras throughout the building seem to track your movements more closely than they should for a simple intern. Conversations stop when you walk past certain desks, and most concerning of all, you've caught glimpses of what appear to be manipulated photographs in development folders that you're not supposed to have access to. The manipulated images are subtle but unmistakable once you know what to look for. Photos of Spider-Man helping people have been digitally altered to make his actions appear more aggressive or threatening. Pictures where he's clearly working with police have been cropped to remove the officers, making it look like he's acting alone and outside the law. The level of sophistication required for these alterations suggests this isn't the work of a single disgruntled editor, but an organized effort involving multiple people with advanced technical skills. Your phone buzzes with a text from Peter asking how your research project is going. You've been careful not to communicate anything sensitive through digital channels, but his check-ins remind you that this isn't just an abstract investigation anymore. The person being targeted by this campaign is your friend, someone you care about who's risking his life every day to protect a city that's being systematically turned against him. The most disturbing discovery comes when you're organizing files from the photo development lab. Hidden among routine prints, you find a series of images that show Spider-Man in situations you know he's never been in. The photos appear to be composites, created by combining real images of Spider-Man with backgrounds from crime scenes he wasn't present at. Someone has been manufacturing evidence to make it look like Spider-Man was involved in criminal activities. As you photograph the evidence with your personal phone, your hands shake with a combination of anger and fear. This isn't just unfair journalism or editorial bias. This is an active conspiracy to destroy Spider-Man's reputation using fabricated evidence. Someone is investing serious time, money, and technical expertise into making Peter look like a criminal instead of the hero he really is. The worst part is realizing how effective this campaign has been. You've overheard conversations on the subway, in coffee shops, even at school, where people express doubt about Spider-Man's motivations. The constant drumbeat of negative coverage is working, slowly but surely turning public opinion against someone who has dedicated his life to protecting others. A file folder marked with today's date catches your attention, and when you open it, your blood runs cold. Inside are detailed notes about Project Discredit Phase 2, including references to staged incidents designed to make Spider-Man look reckless and dangerous. The timeline shows events planned for the next several weeks, each one calculated to cause maximum damage to Spider-Man's reputation. But what makes you feel sick is the realization that tomorrow night's plan involves a situation that could put innocent people in real danger, all to create a scenario where Spider-Man's attempts to help will be photographed and presented as evidence of his recklessness. Someone is willing to risk civilian lives just to get the photos they need for their smear campaign. The sound of footsteps in the hallway outside the archive room makes you freeze. It's past midnight, and most of the building should be empty, except for the skeleton crew working the overnight shift. You quickly close the folders and slide them back into their proper places, but your heart is pounding so loudly you're sure whoever is approaching must be able to hear it. As the footsteps get closer, you realize that your investigation has just moved from interesting to dangerous. Someone doesn't want the truth about Spider-Man to come to light, and they're willing to go to extraordinary lengths to keep their conspiracy hidden. The question now is whether you can get this information to Peter before tomorrow night's staged incident puts both him and innocent civilians in serious danger. Fear tastes like copper in your mouth as you realize you've stumbled into something far more dangerous than simple media bias. The footsteps in the hallway are getting closer, and you can hear the jingle of keys and the crackling of radio static that suggests building security is making their rounds. Your heart pounds so hard it feels like it might burst from your chest as you frantically try to look like you're doing legitimate work instead of uncovering a conspiracy against Spider-Man. Sweat beads on your forehead despite the building's aggressive air conditioning, and your hands tremble as you grab your phone to quickly photograph the most damning evidence before you have to put everything away. The camera flash seems impossibly bright in the dim archive room, and you pray that no one notices the brief flicker of light under the door. Your breath comes in short, shallow gasps as you hear the security guard's radio crackle to life with routine check-in calls to different floors of the building. Each transmission brings them closer to your location, and you realize you need to either find a way to hide or come up with a believable explanation for why you're in the archives so late at night with files spread across the desk. The evidence you've discovered is too important to ignore, but it's also too dangerous to be caught with. As quietly as possible, you slip the most critical documents into your backpack, hoping that the security guards won't think to search a simple intern's belongings. The papers feel like they're burning against your back as you zip the bag closed and try to arrange yourself to look like you've been doing routine filing work. But your investigation is far from over. The Project Discredit folder mentioned a sub-basement level that you didn't even know existed in the Daily Bugle building. If there's more evidence of this conspiracy hidden in the building's lower levels, you need to find it before tomorrow night's staged incident puts Peter and innocent people in danger. The service elevator at the end of the hallway requires a special keycard to access the basement levels, but you've noticed that the cleaning crew often leaves their equipment cart unattended near the elevator banks. Sure enough, there's a maintenance keycard clipped to the side of a supply cart that's been left outside the bathroom. Your hands shake as you carefully remove the card, knowing that using it will leave a digital trail of your movements throughout the building. The service elevator descends much farther than you expected, passing what should be the building's foundation and continuing down into levels that don't appear on any of the floor directories you've seen. When the doors finally open, you step out into a corridor that looks nothing like the offices and newsroom above. This area has been converted into something that resembles a high-tech operations center more than a newspaper's storage facility. Fluorescent lights flicker on automatically as you move through the corridor, revealing doors marked with cryptic labels like digital processing, archive analysis, and strategic communications. The walls are lined with cables and networking equipment that suggests this entire floor is dedicated to computer-intensive work that has nothing to do with traditional journalism. Your phone's camera works overtime as you document everything you see, knowing that Peter will need this evidence to understand the scope of what he's facing. The sophistication of this operation is staggering. Someone has invested millions of dollars in creating a propaganda machine specifically designed to destroy Spider-Man's reputation, and they've hidden it beneath one of New York's most respected newspapers. The room labeled Archive Analysis contains dozens of computer workstations, each one equipped with high-end photo editing software and video manipulation tools. File cabinets line the walls, and when you carefully open one drawer, you find hundreds of photographs of Spider-Man that have been systematically catalogued and cross-referenced. Some are originals showing his heroic actions, while others are the manipulated versions designed to make him look dangerous or reckless. But the most chilling discovery is in a folder marked Subject Profile. Inside are detailed files about Peter Parker's life, including photographs of him at school, records of his academic performance, and even surveillance photos of him entering and leaving his apartment building. Whoever is running this operation knows exactly who Spider-Man is, and they've been watching Peter's civilian life as carefully as they've been tracking his superhero activities. The psychological profile included in Peter's file makes your stomach turn. It describes him as psychologically vulnerable due to guilt complex and need for approval, and recommends strategies for exploiting subjects' emotional weaknesses through public opinion manipulation. These people aren't just trying to discredit Spider-Man's actions. They're specifically targeting Peter's mental and emotional well-being, trying to break him down psychologically by turning the city he protects against him. As you photograph page after page of evidence, you hear the sound of the service elevator starting up again. Someone else is coming down to this hidden floor, and from the sound of multiple voices, it's more than just a security guard making routine rounds. You quickly close the files and look around the room for somewhere to hide, but the space is too open and well lit to offer much concealment. The voices in the hallway are getting closer, and you can make out fragments of conversation that confirm your worst fears. They're discussing tomorrow night's operation, talking about camera angles and timing to ensure they get the most damaging footage possible of Spider-Man's response to their staged crisis. One voice mentions acceptable civilian casualties in a tone so casual it makes your blood run cold. You manage to squeeze yourself into the space between two large file cabinets just as the door to the archive analysis room opens. Through the narrow gap, you can see three people in expensive suits examining the same files you were just looking at. They're clearly not Daily Bugle employees, judging by their professional appearance and the way they discuss the operation like military officers planning a mission. Phase 2 initiates tomorrow at 2100 hours. One of them says, consulting a tablet computer. The warehouse fire will draw Spider-Man to the location, and our embedded photographers will be positioned to capture his response from angles that emphasize property damage over civilian rescue. What about collateral damage? Asks another voice. If the fire spreads faster than anticipated? Acceptable risk, comes the cold reply. The value of discrediting Spider-Man permanently outweighs potential losses. Besides, if there are civilian casualties, we can blame them on Spider-Man's reckless intervention methods. Your entire body goes numb as you realize these people are planning to deliberately endanger innocent lives just to get photographs that will make Peter look bad. This isn't just a media conspiracy anymore. It's domestic terrorism disguised as public relations, and tomorrow night people are going to die unless you can warn Peter in time. The conversation continues for what feels like hours but is probably only minutes, covering details about camera placement, escape routes for their operatives, and contingency plans if Spider-Man doesn't respond to their trap the way they expect. When they finally leave, you remain hidden for another 10 minutes, making sure they're really gone before crawling out from between the file cabinets. Your legs feel like rubber as you stand up, and you have to lean against the wall for support as the full magnitude of what you've discovered sinks in. This conspiracy goes far beyond the Daily Bugle. Someone with serious resources and complete disregard for human life has declared war on Spider-Man, and they're using one of New York's most trusted news sources as their weapon. As you make your way back to the service elevator, clutching the evidence that could save Peter's life and reputation, you hear footsteps approaching from multiple directions. The corridor lights begin turning on in sequence, suggesting that several people are converging on your location. Your hands shake as you press the elevator call button, praying it will arrive before whoever is coming reaches you. The elevator doors open just as you hear voices calling out from both ends of the hallway. You dive inside and frantically press the button for the main floor, but not before you hear one of the voices clearly state your full name. They know exactly who you are, and they know you've seen too much. As the elevator climbs toward the newsroom levels, you realize that everything has changed. You're no longer just helping Peter protect his secret identity. You're now the only person who can prevent a terrorist attack disguised as a publicity stunt, and the people behind it know you're trying to stop them. Tomorrow night, both you and Peter will be walking into a trap, but at least now you have the information needed to turn their own plan against them. Relief floods through you like warm honey when you hear a familiar voice in the Daily Bugle's emergency stairwell. Just as the conspiracy's security team was closing in on your location, Peter arrived in full Spider-Man gear, having somehow tracked your distress and figured out exactly where you needed help. The sight of his red and blue costume in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the stairwell is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. "Did you really think we'd let you handle this alone?" he asks, his voice slightly muffled by the mask, but filled with the kind of determination that has made him New York's greatest hero. Before you can even respond, building alarms start blaring throughout the Daily Bugle, suggesting that your discovery of the conspiracy has triggered some kind of emergency protocol. The cool night air hits your face like a blessing as Spider-Man helps you escape through a window 20 stories above the street. Your legs wobble with adrenaline crash as you realize how close you came to being captured by people who wouldn't have hesitated to hurt you to protect their secret operation. The distant sound of sirens grows louder, but for the first time in hours you feel safe because Spider-Man is here to protect you. Peter's presence beside you as you both crouch on the fire escape of a building across from the Daily Bugle is more comforting than any superhero's protection should be. This isn't just Spider-Man rescuing a civilian, this is your friend making sure you're okay after you risked everything to help him. The difference matters more than you realized it would. "I got your emergency text about the warehouse setup," Peter says, pulling off his mask so you can see his face. "But I had no idea they'd identified you as a threat. How long have they been watching you?" "I don't know," you admit, your voice still shaky from the escape. "But they knew my name, Peter. They have files on both of us. This conspiracy goes way deeper than just the Daily Bugle's editorial policy." As you share the evidence you gathered from the sub-basement, Peter's expression grows increasingly grim. The photographs of manipulated images, the psychological profile, the detailed plans for tomorrow night's staged crisis, all of it paints a picture of an enemy more dangerous and well-funded than either of you had imagined. "This explains so much," Peter says, studying the photos on your phone. "I've been wondering why public opinion has been shifting so dramatically despite all the people I've helped. They're not just reporting negatively about Spider-Man, they're manufacturing evidence to make me look like a threat." The weight of what you've discovered settles between you both as you realize the full scope of the challenge ahead. Tomorrow night, Peter will have to respond to what appears to be a genuine emergency, knowing it's a trap designed to get footage that will be used to destroy his reputation permanently. But if he doesn't respond, real people will die in the warehouse fire that the conspirators are planning to set. "We need help," you say, looking at the evidence spread between you on the fire escape. This is too big for just the two of us to handle. Actually, Peter says with a small smile, we have more help than you might think. Remember when I mentioned that a few people know my secret? It's time you met the rest of Spider-Man's support network. The safe house where Peter takes you looks like an ordinary apartment building in Queens, but the technology hidden inside is anything but ordinary. Multiple computer workstations line the walls, displaying real-time feeds from security cameras throughout the city. Communication equipment that would make NASA jealous sits alongside police scanners, emergency service radios, and monitoring systems for every major news outlet in New York. But what strikes you most about the safe house isn't the equipment, it's the people. There are at least 6 adults working at various stations, all of them focused on tasks that clearly support Spider-Man's operations. They look up when you and Peter enter, and their faces show the kind of relief that comes from knowing a team member has made it home safely from a dangerous mission. Everyone, meet our new intelligence analyst, Peter announces, and the warmth in his voice makes you realize that you're not just being introduced to his support team, you're being welcomed into a family that most people don't even know exists. The older woman operating the communication station stands up and extends her hand to you. I'm Maria, she says, and I've been coordinating Spider-Man's emergency response for about 18 months now. We've been hoping someone would finally infiltrate the Daily Bugle operation. You knew about the conspiracy, you ask, amazed. We suspected, explains a younger man from behind one of the computer workstations. But we couldn't get anyone inside their operation to gather proof. Your discovery of the sub-basement changes everything. Now we can actually do something about it. As the team reviews your evidence, you begin to understand the sophisticated operation that has been supporting Spider-Man's work behind the scenes. Maria coordinates with emergency services to ensure Spider-Man arrives at genuine crises as quickly as possible. The computer specialist tracks criminal activity patterns to help Peter anticipate where he'll be needed most. Others monitor media coverage, social media sentiment, and potential threats to Spider-Man's civilian identity. This is incredible, you tell Peter quietly. You're not just a solo superhero. You're part of an entire organization. Not an organization exactly, Peter corrects. More like a family of people who believe that someone should be watching out for the little guy. Some of them are retired police officers, others are former military. A few are just citizens who got tired of waiting for someone else to fix the problems in their neighborhoods. The warmth and acceptance you feel from Spider-Man's support network is unlike anything you've experienced before. These people have dedicated their lives to helping one teenager make the world a better place, and they're welcoming you into their mission without question or hesitation. For the first time since you discovered Peter's secret, you feel like you truly belong somewhere. All right, Maria says, calling everyone's attention to the main display screen. Based on our new intelligence, here's how we're going to handle tomorrow night's operation. The plan that emerges over the next hour is brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of walking into the trap blind, Spider-Man will arrive at the warehouse fire with full knowledge of the conspiracy's camera positions and planned narrative. The support team will have their own photographers positioned to capture the real story of Spider-Man's heroic response while simultaneously gathering evidence of the staged nature of the entire crisis. But the most important part of the plan involves you. Your role will be to coordinate with legitimate news outlets, providing them with the evidence of media manipulation and the true story of Spider-Man's heroism. By the time the conspiracy's version of events reaches the public, the real story will already be out there, supported by proof of the Daily Bugle's coordinated deception campaign. Are you ready for this? Peter asks as the team finalizes their preparations. Once we expose this conspiracy, there's no going back to being a normal intern at a normal newspaper. You look around the room at the faces of people who have chosen to dedicate their lives to supporting a teenage superhero, simply because they believe it's the right thing to do. These ordinary citizens have become heroes in their own right, using their skills and resources to fight for truth and justice in ways that don't require superpowers or web shooters. I've never been more ready for anything in my life, you tell Peter, and you mean every word. The safe house feels like home as the Spider-Man support network welcomes you with sandwiches and hot coffee, sharing stories of past operations and close calls that make you realize how much Peter has been accomplishing with help from people who care about him. As you submit your expose to every legitimate news outlet in the city, Peter smiles at you across the room. "Thanks for having my back," he says. "Always," you reply. Understanding now that you're not just helping Spider-Man anymore, you're part of something bigger, something that proves ordinary people can make an extraordinary difference when they work together for the right reasons. 2 months into your partnership with Spider-Man Support Network, you find yourself walking through the heart of Queens on a perfect Saturday afternoon, documenting the real impact of Peter's heroism on the community he calls home. The assignment came from Maria, who suggested that the best way to counter negative propaganda is with authentic stories from the people Spider-Man protects every day. The smell of authentic Italian pizza drifts from Tony's family restaurant as you make your way down the familiar streets of Forest Hills. Children play hopscotch on sidewalks that feel safer than anywhere else in New York City, their parents chatting comfortably on stoops and benches without the constant vigilance required in other neighborhoods. There's something special about this part of Queens, an atmosphere of community and security that you're beginning to understand has everything to do with having Spider-Man as a neighbor. Your first stop is Delmar's Deli, where Mr. Delmar greets you with the kind of warm smile reserved for family members. When you mention that you're writing an article about neighborhood safety and community heroes, his eyes light up with genuine enthusiasm. "Spider-Man?" he says, leaning across the counter conspiratorially. "That kid's been looking out for us for years. Just last month, he stopped 3 guys from robbing Mrs. Chen's laundromat. But you know what I remember most? The time he helped my nephew Miguel with his science project for school. Kid was struggling with physics, and somehow Spider-Man knew exactly what would help him understand." The warmth in Mr. Delmar's voice tells you everything you need to know about how this community really feels about their protector. This isn't the fear or suspicion that the Daily Bugle has been trying to manufacture. This is genuine affection for someone who has proven himself through years of small acts of kindness that never make the evening news. As you continue through the neighborhood, the stories multiply. The elderly woman at the bus stop tells you about the time Spider-Man helped her carry groceries up 3 flights of stairs when the elevator in her building was broken. The teenage mother pushing a stroller mentions how he returned her stolen purse with every dollar still inside, plus a note encouraging her to keep working toward her nursing degree. At PS 1018, the elementary school where Peter himself once attended, Principal Rodriguez shares stories that make your heart swell with pride for your friend. "Spider-Man visits our students regularly," she explains, talking to them about responsibility, kindness, and standing up for people who need help. The children adore him, but more importantly, they understand his message. Bullying incidents have dropped 70% since he started coming here. The pattern that emerges from your interviews is remarkable. Spider-Man isn't just stopping major crimes and preventing disasters. He's woven himself into the fabric of this community in ways that go far beyond traditional superhero activities. He helps with homework, gives directions to lost tourists, assists elderly residents with technology problems, and somehow manages to remember the names and personal situations of hundreds of people throughout Queens. Mrs. Rodriguez from the corner market shows you a photo on her phone of Spider-Man helping her stock shelves during a particularly busy weekend when her usual employees called in sick. "He wouldn't take any payment," she says, shaking her head in amazement. "Just said he was happy to help a neighbor. That's the kind of person he is." But what strikes you most about these conversations is how the community has responded to Spider-Man's example. Parents tell you about neighborhood watch groups that formed after seeing how much one person could accomplish by caring about others. Local businesses have started coordinating to help elderly residents with grocery delivery and home maintenance. The community center now offers free tutoring programs inspired by Spider-Man's emphasis on education and personal growth. "He doesn't just protect us," explains Carlos, a high school student who volunteers at the community center. "He shows us how to protect each other. My little sister used to be afraid to walk to school alone, but now she knows that everyone in the neighborhood is looking out for everyone else, just like Spider-Man looks out for all of us." The more people you talk to, the more you realize that Spider-Man's greatest superpower isn't his spider abilities or his web shooters. It's his capacity to inspire ordinary people to become heroes in their own small ways. He's created a ripple effect of kindness and community responsibility that extends far beyond anything he could accomplish alone. Your conversation with Father Martinez at St. Simon's Catholic Church provides perhaps the most profound insight into Spider-Man's impact on the community. "In my 40 years of serving this parish," the elderly priest says, I've never seen anything like what that young man has accomplished. He's reminded all of us that we have a responsibility to care for our neighbors, and he's shown us that even small acts of kindness can change the world. As the afternoon turns to evening, you find yourself sitting in Aunt May's garden, interviewing Peter's guardian for your article. She speaks about Spider-Man with obvious pride and affection, though she's careful not to reveal any details that might compromise his secret identity. Spider-Man represents the best of what this community can be, Aunt May says, tending to her tomato plants as she talks. He's proof that you don't need to be rich or famous or powerful to make a difference. You just need to care about people and be willing to act on that caring. The golden hour light filtering through the garden makes everything seem peaceful and perfect, but your interview is interrupted by the sound of your phone buzzing with an urgent message. When you check the screen, your blood runs cold. It's from an unknown number, but the message is crystal clear. We know you're gathering positive Spider-Man stories. Stop now or face consequences. You show the message to Aunt May, who immediately becomes concerned. You should show this to Peter, she says. There are people who don't want the truth about Spider-Man to come out, and they might be willing to hurt anyone who tries to help him. As you prepare to leave the garden, several neighbors approach with similar stories of receiving threatening messages or suspicious phone calls after mentioning their positive experiences with Spider-Man to journalists or researchers. Mrs. Chen from the laundromat mentions seeing unfamiliar people with cameras lurking around the neighborhood, taking pictures of anyone who speaks positively about their protector. Someone's trying to intimidate the community into staying quiet. You realize the pieces of a larger puzzle falling into place. They can't manipulate Spider-Man's image if the people he protects keep telling the truth about who he really is. The elderly woman at the bus stop, whose story about Spider-Man helping with groceries had seemed so heartwarming earlier, now admits that she's been afraid to speak publicly about her experiences. They told me that talking to reporters would put Spider-Man in danger, she says quietly. I don't want to cause trouble for someone who's been so kind to me. Your phone buzzes again with another threatening message, this one more specific about consequences if you continue your community interviews. But as you look around at the faces of the Queen's residents who have shared their stories with you, you realize that these threats only prove how important your work really is. Someone is desperately trying to silence the voices of ordinary people who know the truth about Spider-Man's character and impact on their community. They're willing to intimidate elderly residents, threaten journalists, and suppress positive coverage because they understand that authentic community testimonials are the most powerful weapon against their propaganda campaign. As you head home with notebooks full of inspiring stories and a phone full of threatening messages, you know that tomorrow's article will be more important than you originally planned. You're not just writing about Spider-Man's heroism anymore. You're documenting a community's love for their protector and their determination to speak the truth despite attempts to silence them. The people of Queens have chosen their hero, and no amount of media manipulation or intimidation will change their minds about the teenager who has dedicated his life to keeping them safe. Your instincts scream danger as you read the latest threatening message on your phone. But something deeper tells you that uncovering this conspiracy might be the key to protecting not just Spider-Man's reputation, but the entire community that has come to depend on him. The threats against Queens residents who speak positively about their neighborhood protector have escalated beyond simple intimidation, and now you're witnessing something that chills you to the bone. Swinging through Queens with Spider-Man via web zipline has become routine over the past few weeks, but tonight feels different. The wind rushing past your face as you navigate between apartment buildings carries an undercurrent of tension that makes every shadow seem potentially dangerous. Peter's spider sense has been acting up all evening, putting him on edge in a way you've never seen before. Queens spreads out below you like a patchwork quilt of families and dreams, each lighted window representing people who trust that someone is watching over them while they sleep. The view from this height should be beautiful and inspiring, but tonight it feels vulnerable. Like you're seeing all the places where innocent people could be hurt by whoever is orchestrating this campaign against Spider-Man. The grip of the web line burns your palms as you learn to navigate Peter's aerial highways. But the physical discomfort is nothing compared to the knot of anxiety growing in your stomach. The sound of distant sirens responding to emergency calls throughout the city provides a constant reminder that while you're investigating media conspiracies, real crimes are happening that require Spider-Man's attention. There, Peter says, pointing toward a warehouse district on the edge of Queens where several suspicious figures can be seen moving around with professional photography equipment. That's got to be them. What you discover when you get closer makes your blood run cold. The suspicious activity isn't just random criminals or overzealous journalists. It's a coordinated operation involving at least a dozen people with expensive cameras, lighting equipment, and what appears to be props designed to create fake crime scenes. They're not just waiting to photograph Spider-Man responding to emergencies. They're manufacturing emergencies specifically to photograph his response. The fake Spider-Man costumes are the most disturbing part of the setup. Someone has created multiple replica suits that are designed to look like Spider-Man's real costume in photographs, but with subtle differences that make the wearer appear more threatening or aggressive. These imposters are clearly intended to commit crimes while dressed as Spider-Man, creating footage that will be used to destroy his reputation permanently. As you and Peter observe from a rooftop across the street, you realize the scope of tonight's operation goes far beyond anything you uncovered at the Daily Bugle. This isn't just media manipulation anymore. This is a full-scale psychological warfare campaign designed to turn New York City against its greatest protector by making residents believe that Spider-Man himself has become a threat to their safety. "We need to document everything," Peter whispers, his voice tight with controlled anger. This kind of systematic deception could destroy years of community trust in a single night. Your phone's camera works overtime as you record evidence of the fake crime scene construction, the replica costumes, and the sophisticated camera setups designed to capture footage from angles that will make Spider-Man look as threatening as possible. But what makes you feel sick is overhearing the coordination between the various teams involved in tonight's operation. Phase 1 initiates in 30 minutes. Comes a voice through someone's radio. Fake Spider-Man team will begin robbery simulation at the electronics store, while photography teams capture response from established positions. Real Spider-Man should arrive within 5 minutes of the staged crime beginning. "What about civilian safety?" asks another voice. "Secondary priority," comes the cold response. "If bystanders are injured during the simulation, we'll use that footage to show Spider-Man's reckless endangerment of innocent people. Win-win scenario." The casual dismissal of potential civilian casualties makes your entire body go numb with rage. These people aren't just trying to damage Spider-Man's reputation anymore. They're willing to hurt innocent people, including children and elderly residents, just to get the footage they need for their propaganda campaign. Peter's hands clench into fists as he processes what you've both just heard. "They're using my own community against me," he says quietly. "They know I can't ignore a crime in progress, even if I suspect it's a trap." The terrible genius of their plan becomes clear as you watch the final preparations. They've chosen a location surrounded by apartment buildings full of families, ensuring that Spider-Man will have to respond regardless of his suspicions about the setup. The fake criminals are wearing body armor and carrying weapons that could seriously injure anyone who gets in their way, including the real Spider-Man. But the most insidious part of the trap is psychological. If Spider-Man doesn't respond to what appears to be a violent crime in progress, real people could be hurt. But if he does respond, he'll be walking into a scenario specifically designed to make him look reckless, violent, and dangerous to the community he spent years protecting. They've studied your response patterns, you realize, looking at the precise positioning of cameras and fake civilians. They know exactly how you'll approach this situation, and they've planned every angle to make your heroic actions look like aggression. Your phone buzzes with an urgent message from Maria at the safe house, multiple fake emergency calls being placed throughout Queens. They're trying to spread Spider-Man's attention across the borough to ensure he arrives at the main setup exhausted and off balance. The coordination required for this operation is staggering. Someone has invested serious money and planning into a single night's worth of footage designed to destroy everything Peter has built with the Queens community. But as you watch the conspiracy unfold, you realize they've made one critical mistake. They've underestimated the intelligence and dedication of Spider-Man's support network. While they've been planning this elaborate deception, you and Peter's allies have been preparing countermeasures of your own. Every fake emergency call has been traced, every camera position has been identified, and legitimate journalists are standing by to capture the real story of tonight's events. Ready to turn their own plan against them? Peter asks, adjusting his web shooters for what promises to be the most important night of his career as Spider-Man. But before you can respond, your blood runs cold as you spot something that changes everything. Among the people coordinating tonight's operation, you recognize a face that makes your heart skip a beat. It's someone from your daily life, someone you trusted, someone who has been feeding information about your investigation directly to the conspiracy. The betrayal cuts deeper than any physical injury could because it means that nowhere in your life has been safe from the people trying to destroy Spider-Man. They've been watching your every move, anticipating your discoveries, and staying one step ahead because someone close to you has been working for them all along. As fake sirens begin wailing in the distance, signaling the start of tonight's elaborate deception, you realize that everything you thought you knew about this conspiracy has been carefully managed information designed to lead you exactly where they wanted you to be. The question now is whether you and Peter can escape the trap that has been closing around you for weeks, or whether tonight will be the end of Spider-Man's career as New York's protector. Crouched on a Queens rooftop with your best friend, watching enemies position themselves around a trap designed to destroy everything he's worked for, you finally understand what Uncle Ben meant about responsibility. It's not just about having power or using it wisely. It's about protecting the people you love, even when that protection requires impossible choices and personal sacrifice. The rough brick scraps against your back as you take cover behind a rooftop air conditioning unit, your heart pounding so hard you can feel it in your throat. The metallic taste of fear coats your tongue as you realize that armed criminals are surrounding your position, all of them coordinating through radio headsets to ensure that tonight's trap unfolds exactly as planned. Your phone buzzes constantly with messages from worried Queens residents who have started noticing the unusual activity in their neighborhood. Mrs. Chen texts that strange men with cameras have been asking questions about Spider-Man. Mr. Delmar reports seeing fake emergency vehicles positioned around the warehouse district. The community that Spider-Man has spent years protecting is now trying to protect him in return, but their warnings might have come too late. The distant sounds of the neighborhood Spider-Man has sworn to protect drift up from the streets below, creating a stark contrast to the danger closing in around you. Children calling to friends during an evening game of street hockey. Families gathering on stoops to enjoy the warm night air. Elderly residents walking small dogs before bedtime. All of them trusting that their friendly neighborhood protector will keep them safe, completely unaware that his ability to continue protecting them hangs in the balance. "They're not just trying to discredit me," Peter says quietly, his voice filled with a pain that goes deeper than any physical injury Spider-Man has ever sustained. "They're trying to take away the one thing that makes all of this worthwhile. They want to destroy the trust between me and the people I protect." The realization hits you like a physical blow. This conspiracy isn't really about Spider-Man's reputation or even his effectiveness as a superhero. It's about severing the connection between Peter and the community that gives his life meaning. Without the trust and support of Queens residents, Spider-Man becomes just another masked vigilante instead of a beloved neighborhood protector. You understand now why the conspiracy has been so specifically targeted at undermining community support rather than just attacking Spider-Man's abilities or methods. They've studied Peter's psychology carefully enough to know that he could survive almost any physical threat, but he couldn't survive losing the faith of the people he's dedicated his life to protecting. "We can't let them win," you tell Peter, surprised by the strength in your own voice. "These people don't understand what you mean to this community. They think heroism is about power and recognition, but you've shown everyone that it's really about caring for your neighbors." Peter's expression shifts as he processes your words, and you can see him drawing strength from the reminder of what he's really fighting for. This isn't about preserving Spider-Man's reputation for the sake of ego or fame. It's about protecting a relationship between a hero and his community that has inspired countless acts of kindness and courage throughout Queens. The sound of approaching helicopters adds urgency to an already desperate situation, but it also brings an unexpected source of hope. Those aren't media helicopters or police aircraft responding to fake emergency calls. They're news helicopters from legitimate outlets, guided to this location by the intelligence you and the support network have been providing about tonight's staged operation. Maria's plan is working, you realize, checking your phone for updates from the safe house. Real journalists are here to document what's actually happening, not just broadcast the conspiracy's manufactured story. Your decision in this moment defines not just Peter's future as Spider-Man, but your own understanding of what it means to be responsible for others. The people positioning themselves around your location aren't just threatening a superhero, they're threatening someone you care about, someone whose friendship has changed your life, someone who has trusted you with the most dangerous secret in his world. The choice becomes clear as you watch Peter struggle with the impossible decision between exposing himself to capture and allowing innocent people to be hurt by the fake crime scenario unfolding below. You're not just protecting Peter Parker or Spider-Man anymore. You're protecting the symbol of hope that he represents to everyone in Queens who believes that ordinary people can make extraordinary differences in the world. I have an idea, you tell Peter, pulling out your phone to send a carefully worded message to every contact in your address book. What if instead of walking into their trap, we invited the entire neighborhood to witness what's really happening here? The message you send is simple but powerful. Spider-Man needs our help tonight. If you care about our community's protector, come to the warehouse district and see the truth about what some people are trying to do to him.
Within minutes, your phone explodes with responses. Not just from the residents you've interviewed over the past weeks, but from their friends, family members, neighbors, and even people from other parts of Queens who have heard about Spider-Man's positive impact on the community. Everyone wants to help, but more importantly, everyone wants to witness the truth for themselves.
They're coming, you tell Peter, showing him the flood of supportive messages. The whole neighborhood is coming to stand with you. Peter's eyes widen as he realizes what you've done. By inviting the community to witness tonight's events firsthand, you've essentially turned the conspiracy's own trap against them. Instead of creating propaganda footage in isolation, they'll be forced to stage their deception in front of hundreds of people who know Spider-Man personally and can testify to the truth about his character. The sound of car doors slamming and voices calling out to each other from the streets below signals the arrival of Spider-Man's most powerful allies, the people of Queens. They're not coming armed with superpowers or high-tech equipment. They're coming armed with something much more dangerous to the conspiracy: personal knowledge of who Spider-Man really is and what he truly represents. Look, Peter says, pointing toward the warehouse where the fake crime scene has been set up. The conspirators are clearly panicking as they realize their carefully controlled environment has been invaded by witnesses who can't be intimidated or deceived. Your phone buzzes with a final message from the unknown number that has been sending threats. You have no idea what you've done. This won't end here. But as you look down at the growing crowd of Queens residents gathering to support their neighborhood protector, you realize that the conspiracy's anonymous threats no longer have any power over you. You're not standing alone against faceless enemies anymore. You're part of a community that has chosen to stand together for someone who has always stood up for them. Ready to show them what real community support looks like? Peter asks, preparing to swing down and meet the people who have come to defend him. Ready, you reply, understanding finally that true heroism isn't about individual acts of courage. It's about inspiring others to be brave, creating connections that make everyone stronger, and proving that ordinary people working together can overcome any conspiracy designed to divide them. As Spider-Man faces his greatest challenge, you witness something that will stay with you for the rest of your life. The miracle isn't in Peter's superpowers or his incredible abilities as a web-slinger. The true miracle is watching an entire community rise up to protect their protector, proving that the strongest force in the universe isn't radioactive spider bites or advanced technology, but ordinary people who choose to care about each other. The voices of neighbors calling out support from windows and rooftops throughout the warehouse district create a symphony of solidarity that drowns out the conspiracy's carefully orchestrated chaos. Mrs. Chen leans out of her apartment window 3 blocks away, shouting encouragement to Spider-Man in a mixture of English and Mandarin. The teenagers from the community center have organized themselves into groups, using their phones to live stream the real events instead of allowing the fake news to control the narrative. Warm light glows from hundreds of apartment windows as Queens residents illuminate their support for Spider-Man, creating a constellation of hope that stretches as far as you can see. The effect is breathtaking and powerful, transforming what should have been a dark night of deception into a celebration of community solidarity that no amount of media manipulation could have anticipated or prepared for. The criminals and fake journalists who had positioned themselves around the warehouse district are clearly overwhelmed by the sudden appearance of so many witnesses. Their carefully planned deception required secrecy and isolation to work, but now they're surrounded by hundreds of people with cameras, phones, and personal knowledge of Spider-Man's true character. Spider-Man's presence among the crowd feels different tonight than it has during previous emergencies. Instead of operating alone while civilians stay safely out of the way, he's working alongside community members who refuse to let him face this threat by himself. The connection between hero and neighborhood has never been stronger or more visible.
"We know you're the real Spider-Man," calls out Father Martinez from St. Simon's Church, his voice carrying clearly across the gathered crowd. "We've seen your heart through your actions, and no amount of lies can change what we know to be true about your character."
The crowd's response is immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of voices join together in support, sharing personal stories of times when Spider-Man helped them, protected them, or simply showed kindness when they needed it most. The organic testimony from real people who have experienced Spider-Man's heroism firsthand creates a narrative more powerful than any propaganda campaign could ever manufacture.
Mr. Delmar steps forward with a megaphone, his voice filled with the authority of someone who has lived in Queens for decades and knows the difference between genuine heroes and manufactured threats. "This young man has risked his life for our community countless times," he announces. "Tonight, our community stands up for him."
You watch in amazement as the conspiracy's fake crime scene dissolves under the weight of community attention. The people in fake Spider-Man costumes quietly remove their masks and slip away rather than trying to continue their deception in front of so many witnesses. The professional photographers pack up their equipment, realizing that any footage they capture now will show Spider-Man being celebrated by his community rather than rejected by it. But what moves you most is seeing how the community members reveal they've known Spider-Man's secret all along, or at least suspected it, and have been quietly protecting his privacy out of respect and gratitude. Mrs. Rodriguez from the corner market approaches Spider-Man directly, speaking quietly enough that only you and Peter can hear. "We know you live among us," she says simply. "We know you're one of our own, not some outsider who drops in to help when it's convenient. That's why we love you. That's why we'll always stand with you." The elderly woman from the bus stop, who had seemed so frightened by the conspiracy's threats just days ago, now approaches with a confidence that surprises everyone. "They told me that helping Spider-Man would put him in danger," she says loudly enough for the remaining fake journalists to hear. "But I realized that staying silent while good people are attacked is what really puts heroes in danger." Neighborhood watch groups that had formed in response to Spider-Man's example step forward to reveal they've been quietly documenting the conspiracy's activities for weeks. Parents who had organized community safety initiatives in Spider-Man's honor present evidence they've gathered about the fake news campaign. Even the children from PS 108 have contributed, having noticed strangers asking suspicious questions about their superhero friend. "This is what real community support looks like," you tell Peter quietly, as you both watch Queens residents work together to expose the truth about the night's events. They're not just defending Spider-Man, they're defending the idea that heroes can come from their own neighborhoods and that ordinary people have the power to protect what they value. The sound of legitimate news helicopters circling overhead provides documentation that will ensure tonight's true story reaches the broader public, but the real victory is happening at street level. The people of Queens have chosen their hero, and they've proven that genuine community support is stronger than any propaganda campaign designed to divide and deceive. Understanding finally washes over you about Spider-Man's true origin story. It wasn't the radioactive spider bite that made Peter a hero. It was his decision to use his abilities to serve his community, and it was the community's decision to embrace him as one of their own. The real superpower was always the connection between protector and protected, the bond that transforms individual strength into shared purpose. Your phone buzzes with messages from news outlets requesting interviews about the night's events, but the most meaningful communication comes from residents throughout Queens who are sharing their own stories about Spider-Man's impact on their lives. The authentic testimonials flooding social media create a narrative of heroism that no amount of fake news can compete with. Character arc completion flows through you as you realize you're no longer an outsider looking in on Spider-Man's world. You've become part of the community that makes his heroism possible, and you've helped strengthen the bonds that allow ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things when they work together. The peaceful resolution of tonight's crisis comes not through violence or confrontation, but through the simple power of truth supported by people who refuse to let lies define their reality. As the conspiracy's operatives retreat in defeat, the warehouse district transforms into an impromptu block party, celebrating not just Spider-Man, but the spirit of community that he represents. Mr. Delmar approaches with sandwiches for you and Peter, his smile reflecting the pride of someone whose neighborhood has proven that heroes and communities can protect each other. "You kids did good tonight," he says, handing you food that tastes like home and belonging. "This is what neighborhood really means." As the first stars appear over Queens, visible despite the city lights because the air itself seems clearer after tonight's victory, you realize you're not just documenting Spider-Man's story anymore. You're living the story of what makes a community super, and you understand that the greatest adventures are the ones where everyone gets to be a hero. The people of Queens have written their own chapter in the Spider-Man legend tonight, proving that while one person with great power can make a difference, an entire community with great love can change the world. 6 months after the community's triumphant defense of Spider-Man, Peter approaches you with an expression that combines excitement with the weight of enormous responsibility. In his hands is a piece of stock technology that looks like something from a science fiction movie, all sleek curves and softly glowing interfaces that suggest capabilities far beyond anything you've ever imagined. "Want to see how it all started?" he asks, his voice carrying the same mixture of wonder and nervousness that you remember from your first conversation on the school rooftop. "But I have to warn you, some origins change everything you thought you knew about destiny, choice, and the price of becoming a hero." The temporal displacement device activates with a soft hum that makes your entire body tingle with energy that feels both foreign and strangely familiar. The sensation is like being gently pulled apart at the molecular level and then carefully reassembled somewhere else, somewhere when else, in a time before everything you know about Peter Parker and Spider-Man existed. The world that materializes around you is familiar yet strange, like looking at a photograph of a place you know well but seeing it from an angle you've never experienced before. You're standing in the hallway of Midtown High School, but it's Midtown High from several years ago, before Spider-Man existed, before Peter's life became divided between his civilian identity and his superhero responsibilities. The sounds of teenagers chatting about homework and weekend plans fill corridors that look exactly like the ones you walk through every day. But the energy is different somehow. There's an innocence here, a simplicity that you realize will be lost forever once Peter's transformation begins. Students worry about normal things like test grades and social media drama, completely unaware that one of them will soon become New York's greatest protector. Your heart pounds as you spot a younger version of Peter Parker making his way through the crowded hallway, and the sight of him hits you like a physical blow. This Peter looks so young, so hopeful, so completely unprepared for the weight that's about to be placed on his shoulders. His backpack is stuffed with textbooks instead of web cartridges, and his biggest concern appears to be whether he'll finish his chemistry homework before 5th period. The weight of knowing tragic events while being powerless to prevent them settles over you like a heavy blanket. You understand now why Peter warned you about the emotional cost of witnessing origin stories. Watching someone you care about living in innocent happiness while knowing the pain and responsibility that awaits them is almost unbearable. Uncle Ben is there too, alive and vibrant, and completely unaware that his time with Peter is measured in days rather than years. He's picking Peter up from school, and the easy affection between them is beautiful and heartbreaking simultaneously. Uncle Ben ruffles Peter's hair and asks about his day with the kind of parental love that Peter will carry with him through every battle, every difficult choice, every moment when he needs to remember why heroism matters. "How was academic decathlon practice?" Uncle Ben asks as they walk toward his car, and Peter's response is filled with teenage enthusiasm about science and learning and the future he's planning for himself. Neither of them knows that tomorrow's field trip to Oscorp will change everything, transforming Peter from a normal student into someone who carries the safety of millions on his shoulders. Aunt May greets them both at the Parker family dinner table that evening, and the warmth of their family dynamic makes your chest tight with emotion. This is the foundation that will sustain Spider-Man through his darkest moments, the love and values that will guide him when he has to make impossible choices between his personal desires and his responsibility to protect others. The conversation at dinner revolves around normal family topics that feel precious precisely because of their ordinariness. Peter's grades, his college applications, Uncle Ben's work at the warehouse, Aunt May's volunteer activities at the community center. They discuss weekend plans and summer vacation possibilities, building memories that will become Peter's anchor when the weight of being Spider-Man threatens to overwhelm him. You study Peter's face throughout the evening, searching for signs of the hero he'll become. But what you see is simply a good kid with a strong moral foundation and a family that loves him unconditionally. The seeds of greatness are there in his kindness toward others, his curiosity about science, his instinctive desire to help when he sees someone struggling, but nothing suggests he's destined for anything more extraordinary than a successful career as a scientist or engineer. Uncle Ben's wisdom comes through in casual conversations that neither he nor Peter recognize as profound at the time. When Peter mentions a classmate being bullied and wonders whether he should get involved, Uncle Ben's response contains the philosophy that will later guide Spider-Man's entire approach to heroism. The only thing necessary for bad things to happen, Uncle Ben says quietly, is for good people to do nothing. We don't get to choose whether difficult situations arise, Pete, but we do get to choose how we respond to them. The painful irony of witnessing this conversation while knowing Uncle Ben's fate makes you want to scream warnings about what's coming. But you understand that changing history would mean preventing Spider-Man from ever existing. The hero who has saved countless lives, inspired an entire community, and shown the world what responsibility really means emerged from the crucible of loss and the choice to honor Uncle Ben's memory through service to others. Peter's excitement about tomorrow's field trip to Oscorp is infectious and devastating simultaneously. He talks about the advanced research being conducted there, the possibility of seeing cutting-edge science in action, the chance to learn from some of the brightest minds in the field. He has no idea that tomorrow will be the last day of his normal life, the final 24 hours before he becomes someone who can never again be completely carefree or purely selfish. That night, as you watch Peter sleep peacefully in his bed, surrounded by posters of scientists and inventors who inspire him, you're struck by how young he looks. Tomorrow, this teenager will gain incredible powers and face the choice that defines every hero, whether to use those abilities for personal gain or for the greater good. The fact that he'll choose service over selfishness isn't predetermined by his spider bite. It's a reflection of the values Uncle Ben and Aunt May have instilled in him throughout his life. The newspaper on Uncle Ben's nightstand shows tomorrow's date, and your hands shake as you realize you're witnessing the calm before the storm that will create Spider-Man. Peter's innocent smile during his last normal dinner breaks your heart because you know that by tomorrow night, that innocence will be gone forever, replaced by the weight of responsibility that he'll carry for the rest of his life. Your phone, somehow still functional across time, buzzes with a message from the Peter Directory. You know, remember, you're here to witness, not interfere. No matter what you see tomorrow, no matter how much you want to change things, the timeline must remain intact. The Spider-Man the world needs can only emerge from the choices the Peter Director watching will make on his own. As you prepare for tomorrow's events, understanding floods through you about the true nature of heroism. Peter Parker won't become Spider-Man because a radioactive spider gives him superpowers. He'll become Spider-Man because when faced with great power, he'll choose to accept great responsibility, honoring the memory of a man who taught him that good people don't have the luxury of standing aside when others need help. You stand at the crossroads of destiny, watching the exact moment when Peter Parker chooses to become extraordinary and understanding that the terrible price of heroism isn't the spider bite or the powers that follow. The real price is the knowledge that you could have prevented tragedy but chose not to, because sometimes love means allowing people to become who they're meant to be, even when that transformation requires walking through fire. The sterile laboratory air of Oscorp mingles with the scent of scientific equipment and adolescent excitement as Peter's academic decathlon team tours the advanced research facilities. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead in the spider exhibit, casting harsh shadows that make everything feel surreal and predetermined, like you're watching a movie where you already know the tragic ending but can't look away. Your heartbeat thunders in your ears as you watch the radioactive spider descend on its nearly invisible strand of web, moving with purpose toward Peter, who is completely absorbed in reading about genetic modification and cross-species experiments. The irony is devastating. The boy, who will become known for his spider sense, has no idea that danger is literally dropping toward him from above. The physical sensation of witnessing destiny unfold is unlike anything you've ever experienced. Time seems to slow as the spider lands on Peter's hand, and you can actually see the moment when everything changes. Not just the bite itself, but Peter's entire future crystallizing in that single instant of contact between modified arachnid and unsuspecting teenager. Peter's initial reaction is so wonderfully normal that it breaks your heart. He swats at his hand reflexively, muttering about bugs and wondering why Oscorp doesn't have better pest control in their supposedly sterile laboratory environment. He has no idea that he's just been infected with genetic modifications that will give him abilities beyond imagination, or that his life has just divided into before and after this moment. The tour continues with Peter participating normally, asking intelligent questions about the research and taking notes for the academic decathlon team's report. But you can see subtle changes beginning already, a slight dizziness that he attributes to excitement, a tingling sensation in his fingertips that he dismisses as nervousness, an increased awareness of sounds and movements around him that feels like heightened attention rather than superhuman senses developing. Understanding the full emotional weight of transformation hits you as you watch Peter struggle through the rest of the school day. He's nauseous during lunch, dizzy in chemistry class, and exhausted by the time he gets home. But he interprets these symptoms as coming down with a cold or being stressed about upcoming exams. The innocence of his assumptions is heartbreaking when you know the truth about what's happening to his body. That evening at dinner, Uncle Ben notices Peter's distress and offers parental comfort that takes on devastating significance in hindsight. "Growing up is hard, Pete," he says gently. "Sometimes our bodies and minds change faster than we're ready for. The important thing is remembering who you are inside, no matter what else changes around you." The wisdom in Uncle Ben's words becomes prophetic as you realize he's unknowingly preparing Peter for the psychological challenges of becoming Spider-Man. The man who will die tonight is giving his nephew the philosophical foundation that will help him navigate the moral complexities of superhero life. Sleep provides no escape for Peter as his body completes its transformation overnight. You watch him toss and turn, his enhanced metabolism burning through calories at an unprecedented rate, while his muscles and bones restructure themselves to accommodate abilities no human was meant to possess. By morning, Peter Parker will wake up in a body that responds differently to every stimulus, processes information at superhuman speeds, and carries the potential for incredible strength or devastating clumsiness. The morning brings Peter's first real encounter with his new abilities, and witnessing his confusion and fear reminds you that gaining superpowers isn't the wish fulfillment fantasy that comic books often portray. Peter accidentally crushes his alarm clock, breaks the bathroom door handle, and can't figure out why his vision has become so acute that he can see individual dust motes floating in sunbeams. School becomes a nightmare of barely controlled chaos as Peter struggles to function normally while his body betrays him at every turn. He accidentally tears pages from textbooks, breaks pencils with casual grip pressure, and flinches from sounds that his classmates can't even hear. The enhanced senses that will eventually become advantages are initially overwhelming disabilities that make concentrating on anything nearly impossible. But the real test comes that afternoon when Peter witnesses a carjacking attempt near the school and feels an overwhelming compulsion to intervene. This is the moment when having great power begins to demand great responsibility, even before Uncle Ben speaks the words that will define Peter's philosophy forever. The choice to act isn't forced by circumstances or guilt. It comes from the values Uncle Ben and Aunt May have spent 15 years instilling in their nephew. Peter's first use of his abilities to help others is clumsy and terrifying for everyone involved, including himself. He moves faster than humanly possible, displays strength that should be impossible for someone his size, and somehow manages to stop the criminals without fully understanding how he did it. The grateful victim thanks him profusely, but Peter is too shaken by what just happened to feel any satisfaction from helping. The walk home from school becomes Peter's first real grappling with the implications of his transformation. He understands instinctively that his life has changed forever, that he can never go back to being a normal teenager, and that the abilities he's gained come with responsibilities he's not sure he's ready to accept. The weight of choice settles on his shoulders as he realizes that with power like his, doing nothing becomes a form of action itself. Uncle Ben is waiting when Peter arrives home, and their conversation becomes the foundation of everything Spider-Man will represent. But watching it unfold while knowing Uncle Ben's fate creates a moral dilemma that tears at your soul. You have the power to warn them both about what's coming, to prevent the tragedy that will define Peter's heroic journey, but doing so would also prevent Spider-Man from ever existing. With great power comes great responsibility, Pete, Uncle Ben says, not knowing he's speaking words that will echo through Peter's mind during every difficult decision for the rest of his life. We're not given abilities so we can think only of ourselves. We're given them so we can help others who aren't as fortunate. The choice in that crucial moment defines not just Peter's destiny, but your understanding of what it truly means to love someone. Your hand reaches toward them as Uncle Ben prepares to leave for the store, every instinct screaming at you to warn them about the carjacker who's waiting, to change history and save a good man's life. But preserving the timeline means allowing tragedy to unfold, because the hero the world needs can only emerge from Peter's choice to honor Uncle Ben's memory through service to others. Everything hangs in the balance as you watch Uncle Ben kiss Aunt May goodbye and ruffle Peter's hair one last time. The weight of destiny settles over the Parker household like a shadow, and you realize that true heroism isn't about avoiding pain or preventing loss. It's about choosing to transform tragedy into purpose, to let grief become the foundation for protecting others from experiencing the same pain. Your decision to preserve the timeline despite personal cost becomes an act of faith in Peter's character and the hero he'll choose to become when tested by loss and responsibility. Your choice in that crucial moment defines not just Peter's destiny, but your own understanding of what it truly means to be responsible for others. Standing invisible in the Parker family living room, watching Uncle Ben prepare to leave for what you know will be his final trip to the store, you make the decision that love sometimes means allowing people to walk their own path, even when that path leads through darkness before reaching the light. Tears of understanding rather than sadness flow down your cheeks as you realize that preventing Uncle Ben's death would mean preventing Spider-Man from ever truly understanding the weight of responsibility. The hero who will save thousands of lives, inspire entire communities, and prove that ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things when they choose to care about others. That hero can only emerge from the crucible of loss and the decision to honor a good man's memory through service. The weight of wisdom settles into your bones as you watch Peter's transformation from confused teenager with strange new abilities into someone who understands that power without purpose is meaningless, but power guided by love and responsibility can change the world. This isn't just about Spider-Man's origin story anymore. It's about understanding that every hero's journey begins with a choice to transform personal pain into protection for others. Time itself seems to approve your decision as the tragic events unfold exactly as they must, not because they're predetermined, but because they represent the price that heroes pay for the wisdom to use their abilities wisely. Uncle Ben's death isn't meaningless violence. It's the catalyst that transforms Peter's potential into purpose, his abilities into heroism, his grief into the greatest force for good that New York City has ever known. The sense of completion washes over you as puzzle pieces fall into place, revealing the larger pattern of how heroes are truly made. It isn't the radioactive spider bite that creates Spider-Man. It isn't even the amazing abilities that follow. The real moment of transformation comes when Peter chooses to let his pain become power for protecting others, when he decides that Uncle Ben's values will live on through his actions as Spider-Man. You watch Peter's first tentative steps into his new destiny with a mixture of pride and heartbreak that only comes from understanding the full cost of heroism. His initial attempts at web-slinging are clumsy and terrifying, but they're driven by a pure desire to prevent other families from experiencing the loss he's just endured. Every stumble, every mistake, every moment of doubt becomes part of the foundation that will support years of heroic service. Learning your true role as guardian of Spider-Man's legacy fills you with purpose that goes beyond anything you imagined when you first discovered Peter's secret at Midtown High. You're not just a friend who happened to stumble into a superhero's world. You're part of an eternal cycle of heroism, someone chosen to witness the birth of legends and help ensure that their stories inspire future generations. The final wisdom that Peter's Academy friend shares with you comes through the temporal communication device as you prepare to return to your own time. Every hero needs witnesses, the message reads, not just to their great battles and spectacular saves, but to their humble beginnings, their moments of doubt, and their choice to keep going despite the cost. You've seen the heart of heroism now. Use that knowledge wisely. Understanding floods through you about how your presence throughout Peter's story was always meant to be part of his journey. From the first day at Midtown High, when you noticed his mysterious absences, through the investigation at the Daily Bugle, the community defense in Queens, and now witnessing his origin, you've been documenting not just Spider-Man's adventures but the entire ecosystem of support, love, and responsibility that makes heroism possible. Receiving the final revelation that you're destined to become the next mentor for future heroes feels like the completion of a circle that began the moment you followed Peter to that school rooftop. Your own journey from confused newcomer to wise guardian mirrors the path that every hero must walk, learning that true strength comes not from powers or abilities, but from the choice to use whatever gifts you have in service of others. Emotional catharsis comes as you understand that Uncle Ben's death serves a purpose greater than tragedy. His loss becomes the foundation for countless acts of heroism, the inspiration for a community of protectors, and the proof that love transcends death when it motivates others to carry forward values of responsibility and service. Every life Spider-Man saves, every crisis he prevents, every person he inspires to be better, all of it stems from Uncle Ben's final lesson about power and responsibility. The full circle becomes complete as you realize that your journey was always leading to this moment of understanding. You began as someone looking for where you belonged, and you discovered that belonging comes not from finding your place in someone else's story, but from understanding your role in the larger narrative of how ordinary people become extraordinary when they choose to care about others. As you prepare to return to the present, the newly transformed Spider-Man swings past the window where you're invisibly standing. He doesn't know you're there yet, but somehow, he seems to sense a friendly presence watching over him. He pauses on a nearby rooftop and looks back toward the Parker house, and you hear him whisper words that will guide him through every challenge ahead. "I promise, Uncle Ben, I'll make sure your sacrifice means something." Peter activates the temporal device with hands that now carry the wisdom of understanding your complete journey together. His gentle smile reflects the knowledge that bringing you to witness his origin was as much about your education as it was about sharing his story. "Ready to go home?" he asks. "Your own students are waiting to learn what you've discovered about the real meaning of heroism." The final revelation that you're not just learning about Spider-Man's legacy, but preparing to continue it, fills you with purpose and excitement for the future. As temporal energy surrounds you both, preparing to return you to your own time, you understand that witnessing Peter's origin was really about understanding your own destiny as someone who will guide the next generation of heroes. Home means something different now. As you prepare to leave the past behind, it's not just the present day or the safe house or even Queens. Home is the understanding that you're part of something eternal and meaningful, a tradition of heroism that passes from one generation to the next through stories, wisdom, and the choice to believe that ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things when they work together for the greater good. As you return to the present, everything looks exactly the same, but feels completely different. Because now you understand that every person you pass on the street has the potential to be someone's hero, and every act of kindness ripples outward in ways that can change the world. The transformation isn't in your surroundings, but in your understanding of your place in the grand web of connections that make heroism possible. Your journey from confused newcomer at Midtown High to wise guardian of Spider-Man's legacy represents something universal about the human experience. We all begin feeling lost and searching for where we belong, but belonging isn't something we find. It's something we create through the choice to care about others and use whatever abilities we have to make their lives better. The story threads that seemed separate when your adventure began now weave together into a complete tapestry of understanding. The Academy newcomer who discovered Peter's secret identity learned that heroes hide among us in the most ordinary places. The Daily Bugle investigator who exposed media corruption learned that truth requires courage and that fighting for what's right sometimes means putting yourself at risk. The community guardian who witnessed queens defend their protector learned that real strength comes from connection and that heroes inspire others to be heroic. The origin witness who saw Spider-Man's beginning learned that great power truly does come with great responsibility, but great love makes that responsibility a privilege rather than a burden. Character arc completion flows through you as you realize you've transformed from someone seeking their place in the world to someone helping others find theirs. The nervous student who first followed Peter to a school rooftop has become a confident guardian who understands that heroism isn't about perfection or special abilities, it's about showing up for others, especially when it's difficult or dangerous or thankless. Understanding washes over you about Spider-Man's true origin story, and it has nothing to do with radioactive spiders or scientific accidents. Peter Parker became Spider-Man the moment he chose to honor Uncle Ben's memory by using his abilities to protect others. The real superpower was always his decision to let love and responsibility guide his actions, even when those actions required personal sacrifice. Your personal growth reflects the journey that every hero must take, from isolation through discovery to purpose and finally to wisdom. You've learned that heroes aren't born or made through dramatic events. They're revealed through everyday choices to be kind, to stand up for what's right, to help those who need it, and to inspire others to do the same. The peaceful wisdom that settles over you comes from understanding that Spider-Man's story isn't really about one remarkable teenager from Queens. It's about the truth that every person has the capacity for heroism, every community has the power to protect what it values, and every generation has the responsibility to pass on the values that make heroism possible. Gentle sounds of the academy at night begin to surround you as you transition towards sleep, but these aren't the sounds of Midtown High anymore. They're the sounds of the training facility where you'll help prepare the next generation of heroes, teaching them not just about powers and responsibilities, but about community, sacrifice, and the choice to transform personal pain into protection for others. The sense of continuity and eternal hope fills you with peace as you realize that Spider-Man's story continues through everyone he's inspired, everyone he's protected, and everyone who chooses to follow his example of using their abilities to serve others. Your own story is just beginning, but it's connected to a tradition of heroism that stretches back through history and forward into a future where ordinary people continue choosing to be extraordinary. Comfort comes from knowing that the cycle continues, that somewhere right now there are young people discovering their own abilities and grappling with the choice between selfishness and service. Your role will be to help them understand that heroism isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about caring enough to try, even when you're scared, even when you're not sure you're strong enough, even when no one will ever know what you've done. Rest settles over you naturally as you understand that tomorrow brings new responsibilities, but also new opportunities to make a difference. Your students will face their own versions of the challenges you've witnessed, and your job will be to help them find the strength and wisdom to choose heroism over comfort, service over selfishness, love over fear. The academy dormitory around you hums with the dreams of future heroes, young people who don't yet know their own potential, but who will discover, as you did, that the greatest adventures come from choosing to care about others. Some will gain amazing abilities, others will rely on intelligence and determination, but all of them will learn that true power comes from the decision to use whatever gifts they have to protect and inspire others. Your own students will one day have this same journey of discovery, learning that heroism isn't about grand gestures or public recognition. It's about showing up consistently, choosing kindness over cruelty, standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves, and proving that ordinary people working together can overcome any challenge. Final wisdom flows through you as you realize that every person who has ever inspired others, protected the vulnerable, or chosen difficult right over easy wrong has been part of Spider-Man's legacy, whether they know it or not. The web of heroism connects us all, and your role is to help others understand their place in that magnificent eternal network of love and responsibility. If tonight's journey moved you, if Peter's story reminded you of your own potential for heroism, consider joining our community of dreamers and believers who understand that the greatest superpowers are kindness, courage, and the choice to care about others. Rest now, future guardian. Tomorrow your neighborhood needs you. Your community depends on you, and somewhere, a young person is discovering their own abilities and wondering how to use them. Your real work begins when you wake up, but tonight, sleep peacefully knowing that you're part of something greater than yourself, something that proves heroes don't need radioactive spider bites to change the world. They just need to remember that with great power comes great responsibility, and with great love comes the strength to embrace that responsibility with joy.